The following TGC program may not be rebroadcast or otherwise used without the express written consent of the Government Channel 5 or the City of Athens.
Welcome to Straightforward Conversation with Gary Hunter. My guest this evening is Gretchen Stevens, Director of Public Occasions at Ohio University. Gretchen has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Ohio University in Fine Arts. She has been the Director of Public Occasions for 6 years, and prior to that she was the Assistant Director of Public Occasions and has served as the Assistant Dean to the College of Fine Arts at Ohio University. Today's topic is going to be the Performing Arts Series at Ohio University and the renovation project that's going on at Templeton Blackburn Memorial Auditorium. Good evening, Gretchen.
Good evening, Gary. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Gretchen, your title is kind of a mouthful, as we saw earlier. Can you kind of tell me what the function of the Director of Public Occasions at Ohio University is?
I will try. Director of Public Occasions really fills a broad use in for the university. I'm responsible for the auditorium, and previous to us moving out for the renovation, we did about 279 events in the auditorium, which I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. And within those 279 events, the School of Music does their large ensemble rehearsals in there. Then they perform their opera, their orchestra, symphony concerts, large choral, their gala things. So we facilitate all those activities for them, help them with their opera, which goes in for a 2-week period, and it's over 3 nights. My office is also responsible for the Performing Arts Series, which is anywhere between 8 and 14 performances, and the Performing Arts Series brings in professional artists from outside of Athens because we are isolated from Columbus, Cincinnati. In addition, we're responsible for the annual commencement exercises, which we just completed 2 weekends ago. Everything from the programs to facilitating, setting up the convo. Every nut and bolt about the commencement exercises belongs to our office. The honors convocation that is in the fall to honor our scholarship recipients. Our office has also worked with the President's Office and the Vice President for Development when we did the Third Century Campaign. We do a lot of the production, major events on the production and facilitation and producing them. And any non-athletic event, concerts, the Jesse Jackson lecture in the convo, my office is responsible for. So
Quite a busy schedule. I'd kind of like to zero in at the moment, and then we can kind of see where the conversation leads us to the Memorial Auditorium, or MEMAUD, as some of us that are graduates of Ohio University call it. Give me a little bit of the history of MEMAUD. When was it built, for instance, if you know, and how long has it been in usage?
It started in 1921. And a group of alumni wanted to do something to remember basically the veterans of the early war. And on 1929 it was dedicated, and it was the greatest material contribution to Ohio University from alumni as a group. And what's really an interesting story about how they gathered the $300,000 that it took to build the building was they asked every faculty person and administrator on campus to donate 10% of their salary, and they did.
They did?
Every faculty and every administrator on campus donated 10% to help them raise $300,000.
And as I remember, 1929 was not exactly a good year. Was that the start of the Depression?
My history is not very good.
All right, I'm telling you, it was the start of the Depression.
Okay, I would believe you then. So that really was, an incredible beginning for the building. It has done, I'm sure you remember, the MIA, the movies in the auditorium, for 50 cents. I mean, there were lots of first dates there. It was the one place that everybody went to see movies. There were 50-cent movies. I think they were on Thursday nights, if I recall.
That's the way I remember it. And I remember the cheap price. And The dark atmosphere.
Dark, yeah. Lots of first kisses, lots of dates, lots of proposals. Everybody remembers from the 70s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, the movies. Irma Voigt, in the early 30s, would take all the women students had to meet every fall with her, and she talked about the virtues of women and all the rules and how to be proper ladies. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, they gathered all the students into the auditorium to talk through and process the bombing, and the devastation that was, etc. President Baker and President Alden held their convocations there, and up until when the Convocation Center was built, which I think this is the 30th year, 1968, the commencement exercises were held on the green with the west portico of the auditorium used as the backdrop. In addition,
we had the concerts on the Elm that we still do today.
Yeah, the concert on the Elms began there. In the early 60s, all the women on campus gathered at the auditorium to protest their hours, because women had hours in those days.
Men did not, right?
Men did not, but women had to be in at 10 o'clock and during the week, and I think it was midnight on Fridays and maybe 1 o'clock on Saturdays, but the women went there to protest that.
Was the auditorium, when it was first built, if you know, well, what's the capacity right now?
2,579 was what it was originally designed to hold. James Bruning, the former provost of our university, in the 60s had philosophy classes in there of 600, and all the lectures were held in there, and they would break out and do their labs somewhere else. And in 1955, when the First Methodist Church burned, for 3 years the First Methodist Church congregation held their Sunday services in the auditorium.
I think we've even had some famous funerals here in town.
We did. Kenny Kerr Sr. Passed away several years ago, and because of the size of the folks that loved and cared for him, they held the funeral in the auditorium. Haven't had a wedding yet. But we did get a request for one. In 1993...
Quite an invited guest list.
In 1993, the building was rededicated from Alumni Memorial Auditorium to Templeton Blackburn Alumni Memorial Auditorium in honor of the first Afro-American man and first African-American woman who had graduated from Ohio University. That was Martha Jane Blackburn and John Newton Templeton. And there will be a dedication of the building when we reopen at that time.
Will the exterior then reflect that name?
It will be on the east side. The north part of the building will maintain the history and be Alumni Memorial Auditorium. The new name will be on the inside and out on the east side. But they didn't want to tamper with that part of the history and still preserve that integrity of that part.
Seems to me it was quite a vision to build a memorial auditorium in 1929, because I would imagine the enrollment at Ohio University was probably only about 2,000, 2,500 students at that time.
I think you're right. I don't know exactly, but as I recall some of the information that we're gathering, that's about what it was. The auditorium still is the largest arts center in southeastern Ohio for the size, even for capacity. Even when we move back in after the renovation, we'll have 2,000 seats. And what is really nice about the auditorium, it really serves more than Ohio University. It serves the entire community in the programming that we do, and busing children in for children's programs. So it really, we like to think in our philosophy it belongs to southeastern Ohio.
So it really is open for a lot of activities for the community throughout the year.
Yeah. We had, what is the lottery called that goes on the road?
Oh, I have no idea. So I can't help you out on that.
Well, the lottery moves, the Ohio Lottery. And they have
the lottery.
The Ohio Lottery goes from site to site within Ohio, and about 4 years ago, we had the Ohio Lottery on the stage. Our former Chamber of Commerce, Bob Huff, brought it in. We had quite a crowd. They do the whole thing. You see it on TV. It's the same thing. They just taped it from our stage.
Is it rented out from your office, or is it?
We do. Yeah, we are responsible for the facilities management, plus we're responsible for everything that goes in. And
so essentially, the policy then is to make it available for community events if it's not being used for a university function.
It is. And during the summertime, we do a lot of work with continuing education when they bring the Ohio Education Association or the Bankers Association, Project Challenge. We've had, and when I became director, we also made the lobbies into art galleries, and we got to be the first premiere for the Eye of Jazz, which were Herman Leonard's photos that are going to be up, they're up at the Kennedy Museum now, are going to be of all the jazz greats. So we got to premiere that in Athens, and they're bringing that back. And we will continue to have a gallery, and we bring in local artists, community artists, to help supplement the gallery space in Athens. Because the School of Art has the museum, each of those have a specific purpose. And again, we like to think of it as a community area where we can have the professionals as well as those who do it for the joy and not necessarily make a living at it.
Very good. We're going to break for a commercial here now, and when we return, we're going to continue this history tour of Memorial Auditorium with some comments from Gretchen on the most famous permanent guest of Memorial Auditorium. Welcome back to Straightforward Conversation. My guest this evening is Gretchen Stevens, Director of Public Occasions at Ohio University. Gretchen, before that commercial break, we were about to talk about Memorial Auditorium's most famous permanent guest, as I phrased it. Who would that be?
That's James. He has been part of the tradition of our auditorium from basically has been passed down, the story of the folklore has been passed down since 1929. When I walked in as a student and worked there for a little while, people talked about James, and James is our resident ghost. And for those of you who poo-poo the idea of ghosts, well, that's your right and privilege, but we believe in James, and James lets us know. He is a friendly ghost. He is not very fond of organ music, and we know that because he will bang on the pipes, and it's, people would say, well, that's just the steam going through the pipes. Well, there is no steam going through the pipes at this time, and we've tested all these theories that it's just steam going through the pipes. When he gets agitated, the pipes will bang. He likes Broadway things. The students, typically the students who work for us, especially in the backstage area, are there very late at night, packing things up, unloading things, and they have seen things move. I mean, nobody around, things will move. They will put something here, and an hour later it's over there, and everyone swears that it hasn't happened. I personally...
This is consistently over a period of time.
Yes, yeah. And I have worked very late, many nights, and I feel his presence. I mean, I know he is there, and he can be ornery in that a door will slam behind me if you're walking down the hall, and the building can be a little bit
intimidating.
At midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, but knowing that you're okay. But I'll have my door shut, and I feel latched, and it'll come, and I talk to him, and I suppose that's going to get me committed soon, but to go on air and tell people that I talked to this ghost.
Do you know how his name came about?
I don't know how his name, other than it is believed that he was killed during the construction of the building, and some people say that he was buried under the cement of underneath the stage. Now, in our diggings, when we are extending the pit, we did not find any evidence of that, but we didn't get up underneath the
Has he
stage.
showed up during the renovation project?
I asked the general contractor if he had seen James or felt James or known James.
He didn't think you were crazy?
No, he didn't really think I was crazy, but he didn't really go into specifics because he was all his male counterpart buddies, were standing around, and so I intend to have a private conversation with him to see if James has been there. I I think James is okay with it. It'll be interesting to see how everything's changed when we get back in there. We were talking, the staff were talking, and some of our students who had been there 3 and 4 years, you know, are eager to see how he's readjusted to being there, because his space has really, really been changed. And it's...
So has he been known to appear, do things during productions, or
he will bang the pipes during productions, yes. He will do that. Gets a little aggravating. But he hates organ music.
There's a pipe organ, as I remember.
There has been. It's gone.
It's gone now.
It's gone.
I'm dating myself.
Yeah. Well, it was just removed before we did the renovation. But you can feel him. You know he's there. You know he's there.
In a couple of minutes, we're going to cut to a clip that we've prepared on the renovation. But I'd like, give me a few stats, if you will, about the renovation, the cost of the renovation, and what generally is going to be done.
Okay. The renovation project was a $5.8 million renovation.
And the Memorial Island was built for $300,000.
Inflation does hit us all, doesn't it? And really the money, it's been 10 years in coming with appropriations and getting this all put together. What folks would see when they walk in, the front doors, basically if you walk in the north side, you will see a new ticket office on the left, which would be a will call area and used for concessions. And that originally was a ticket office, and basically we're restoring it back. It was turned into restrooms for physically challenged during the early 60s because there weren't any restrooms on that first floor area. Paint, some wall coverings in the outer lobby and in the inner lobby. And it will be carpeted where we have not been able to be carpeted before. And then the major differences that people will see will be in the main house itself. I would say about 2/3 of the money is being spent on things folks can't see. I mean, we had to have all new plumbing, all new electric, a lot of infrastructure things so that the building will go on for another 30, 40 years. But we did have taken the ceiling out in the house for acoustical purposes. We had an acoustician, it's not easy for me to say, come in.
It'd be impossible for me to say.
Yeah. And acoustically they needed to basically tune the house, and so we had to take the ceiling out because there wasn't enough space for volume. And there will not be a ceiling put back in. So that's going to be a very unique change. Now, it'll be painted out black, so the folks, unless you really look up to the ceiling, are not going to see it. We'll have lights hung down and things. We have gone from 2,579 seats to 2,000, and those of you who come to many of our performances will be very thrilled to know that we're restoring the original seats, but every seat will be much more comfortable, well padded, and 2 inches wider. We as Americans have gotten wider, generally, and so we've all the seating. It used to be 19 inches, and now some of them will be 21 and some of them 22. You up to 22, and we're going to continental seating. Those of you who've been in there before, we used to have 4 aisles going down on the main floor. We will go to 2 aisles, and if you've ever had to crawl over anybody to get into the middle seats, that will no longer be a problem because we're increasing the depth between the front of the chair and the back of the row before.
That's why the seating capacity is going down. So.
Yes, that's why we've lost the 500 seats on the main floor in order to accommodate width and depth.
Let's take a look now at that clip that we have that actually shows this.
Okay. The other things that people will see are the pit, brand new pit, with a pit lift, which means it's on an elevator. It's like a spring-loaded, not a hydraulic, but it will be able to enable us to go from the ground level, where we will have storage now underneath the house, back, and the orchestra can do that for our Broadway shows, and much deeper, acoustically much better. And we'll then live at stage level, and we're very, very excited about this because it's giving us another 1.5 feet of depth. From the curtain line back to the back wall, we only have 25 feet, which has really prohibited us from doing a lot of the major big shows. With this pit lift, as you'll see, and the 2 proscenium openings that we're piercing into the sides of the proscenium, we're going to be able to do major dance companies, the Alvin Ailey's, the Dance Theater of Harlem, those great big companies that we've always dreamt about doing but just couldn't because of the size. We'll be able to put an orchestra the size of the Cleveland Orchestra on our stage now, which will be thrilling as soon as we find the money to afford them.
Sounds exciting. Let's cut right now and look at that clip.
The most dramatic changes, as you can see, the ceiling's been taken out. It was a flat ceiling in the former house, and what you see up there with the metal framing is what they call a sound reflector. And since they took the ceiling out, they have to have something for the sound to bounce off of to come back into the house or back down to the audience. In addition, what is up there is the new catwalk system. This is the new east side. What this used to be was a portico, but it was open. And what you're standing in now is the first floor, which will be enclosed, the new lobby. And what's great about it is that we'll be able to travel from the front of house to the back of house without going outside again. This is one of the most dramatic changes. Our offices used to be up here. There used to be 3 offices. When they were demolished, we realized that this was the original mezzanine, what they called the mezzanine level, and the decision was made not to put our offices back here, but to restore it back to the way it was. This used to be continuing education space, and this will become offices and a reception area. What you're looking at is what they call the choral room. This is underneath the stage. When we have productions like a major ballet company or a major Broadway show or a major symphony, this is where the folks are. We're going to begin performances and lectures and activity in here in the fall of '99. We are going to be moved into at least the offices on March of '99. I think it's been a good melding of, 1929 architecture and then the needs of technology, but for the art itself, and trying to maintain the integrity of the architecture and the building itself.
That was a really interesting tour that we got of the renovation project, Gretchen.
Yes, we're real excited about it.
I think we're going to break now for a commercial break, and when we return, we're going to devote the last section of the program to the Performing Arts Series and what's going on at Ohio University in Performing Arts.
Good.
Welcome back to Straightforward Conversation. My guest this evening is Gretchen Stevens, Director of Public Occasions at Ohio University. Gretchen, in the last segment that we have here, in the last little bit of time, I'd like to discuss the performing arts programming that you have going on at Ohio University. So I'm just going to give you your head and let you go with that topic.
Okay. Performing Arts Series really began in 1959 with Muriel Hunkins, and I think it was basically began as a chamber series and then has grown out of that. In the 70s it was known as the Ohio University Artist Series. And as the university changed and the community changed, and the university really wanted to provide the cultural and entertainment enrichment for the students. So our mission for the Performing Arts Series is to bring in professional artists, professional companies, like the one you're holding up that was a production of Christmas Carol, which was a professional, what they call bus and truck company, for our students and for the community, because we are 75 miles from Columbus, Cincinnati is 3 hours, Charleston is, and those are the major areas where you can see the major Broadway shows. And the university felt very strongly that we needed to have that within our community. So our purpose is to bring these professional artists in, and it's also to represent a very diverse collection of the artists that we do. And we try to bring in a symphony orchestra or a chambers orchestra as part of the mix, a dance company, modern and traditional ballet. We have had the Feld Ballet which is a more modern contemporary dance company, and David Parsons. We've had Ballet Hispanico, which is a Latin American dance company. We've had Urban Bushwomen, which is basically a women's Afro-American dance company with very contemporary women's issues. And we've also brought in the Oakland Ballet, who did Beauty and the Sleeping Beauty. So we try to balance all those out, because I think I can remember as a child being taken to see a full-length ballet with an orchestra. So we want that to provide that for our children. And we try to bring in some entertainment, and we try to bring in like a Peter, Paul and Mary, the Magic of David Copperfield. So very eclectic. We've done Mary Wilson for Homecoming. We have done Temptations, big shows, and we've got one coming up, we hope.
I could tell you could go on for hours on the
I
program.
can go on. I can.
Unfortunately, we're out of time tonight.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to have you back again at another time, and,
Okay.
and we'll talk further about this, what's going on at Ohio University. This has been Straightforward Conversation with Garry Hunter, and my guest this evening has been Gretchen Stevens, Director of Public Occasions at Ohio University. Good evening.